Hello once again. This video I'd like to dedicate to all you golfers out there struggling to get the ball to go in the air properly. Now, a lot of my students in the past and currently are beginners and haven't been playing the game for very long, and I find the most discouraging and frustrating thing for them is when they're not able to make the ball go in the air. Now really, if you understand the design of your golf clubs with the loft that's set on the club head, all you simply have to do is get the ball to strike the face of the club, and given that the loft is built on the club itself, the ball is going to go into the air. The people who design your golf clubs put loft on the club for that very reason. Now, unfortunately for most new golfers and for some golfers who have been playing for a while, there's a tendency in their swing to want to try to help the ball or create loft or elevate the ball by lifting underneath. Now, this is simply not going to work, especially when the ball is played from the ground. If you have the ball on a tee where the ball is slightly up in the air, there is a possibility you could go under the ball and have the club head moving up at impact, but this still would not be desirable or produce very many good shots. So what we've got here is a video of Tiger Woods on the left with a pitching wedge or perhaps a gap wedge, and a close-up view on the right also of Tiger Woods, but this one is with an 8-iron, swinging a lot faster than he is on the left. But you'll notice that the lines I've drawn on his arms and his club in the address position look very good, very neutral. Hands just slightly forward of the ball perhaps. But I don't like to have the shaft leaning forward too much, and Tiger's got his hands right where I like them. If I draw a line straight up from the golf ball, I like the hands to be on that line. Now, talking essentially here about what happens in the downswing. So you'll see here as he moves away, nice takeaway, set at the top. We've talked about this in other videos, but I want to focus more on what happens coming down. Now, you'll notice here there's a movement left of the lower body. See how he's moved forward of the green line as he starts down. He's kind of pushing down into the ground for a while. He's able to bring this club down towards the golf ball and really have still quite a significant angle between the lead arm and the shaft. Now, what's important is to recognize when the club shaft gets parallel to the ground, which is right here, his hands are right in front of his leg, his right leg, his back leg. Many of you, when your club shaft is parallel to the ground, it happens much earlier in the golf swing. The hands are often out in this area with the club shaft parallel to the ground. So Tiger Woods is nice and narrow as he's approaching the ball. A very obvious bend in this back trailing wrist away from the target. Now you'll notice here, as he's approaching down to hit the golf ball, his hands have already gone past the ball. In fact, his left hand is basically almost in front of his left leg. Now, as the club shaft and the club head reach the ball, this is what it's all about right here, this forward lean on the shaft. Now, with the shaft in that position leaning forward, the club head will be and must be still travelling downward because it hasn't yet reached the low point. The low point's going to be when the club shaft is vertical, which is also when it's in line with the left arm. So at this point here, as Tiger is striking the ball will strike on the face. The club face is de-lofted, so with the forward lean on the shaft as he's got, the loft on the club is reduced. Let's say he's using a pitching wedge which is 46 degrees loft, and he's leaning his shaft forward here about 9 or 10 degrees. So the loft has been decreased from 46 down to perhaps 36 effectively. There's going to be some deflection with the shaft, so that might even be a couple of degrees lower than that. But even though the loft is de-lofted from the true loft on the club still has effective loft. And because of that effective loft, the ball will elevate in the air. And I think it's very clear to see, if you focus on the right hand side, as the club is approaching the ball, it's descending towards the ground. Right? Now I've drawn a line above that golf ball for the purpose of see what happens to the ball as soon as the club strikes it. And you'll notice here, This is impact, and the moment that the club strikes the ball, which is basically just 1 millisecond, the ball starts to move up, and you can see that ball going up above the yellow line. So the angle on the face, the loft on the face, is what's creating that elevation of the golf ball. Right? You'll notice there, right at that moment when the ball and club are in contact with each other, the shaft of the club is leaning forward quite a bit. Here's your vertical 90 degrees. So you're talking about 9 to 10, perhaps 11 degrees of forward lean on the shaft. Now, as I said earlier, if the shaft is leaning forward, this club has not yet reached the low point. So even though the ball is now going to elevate, as we see it is, the club will continue to descend down and enter into the ground. And so for those of you who are practicing on mats, unfortunately you won't be able to see a divot, which is very useful for a beginner to see the club striking the ball on a video and the club descending down into the ground. Now this club is still not going up because the shaft is still leaning forward. Right? Once that club shaft gets to vertical and then starts to go beyond that, of course the club would be traveling up. So the evidence is here. It's a downward compression, it's a downward strike, forward lean on the shaft, ball first, ground second. It's the only way you're going to be consistent at elevating the ball up into the air. Just finally, on the left hand side, when we look back at Tiger's impact position with the hands forward of the ball, you notice two other things. His lower body weight, he's moved out of these green lines. He's now moved several inches more forward. That's one of the main reasons why he's able to lean the shaft forward. If your weight hangs back or you're on your right leg, you don't have much chance to lean the shaft forward and hit down on the ball. So the weight must be focused more in the left side of the lower body. And finally, you'll notice that Tiger's head has remained behind the ball. So the head behind the ball, the hands forward of the ball with the shaft leaning forward, and the weight of the left side favouring the left leg. That's how you do it, people. If you're top in, thin in, hitting the ground behind the ball, you're bottoming out the swing too far behind the ball, you need to work on your golf swing, work on this downward impact, striking the ball first, followed by the ground.